Hey, everybody, this is Rita from I Don't Like Murder with our next episode. And here is my friend Jenny, who is here to talk with me about a case I'm bringing tonight. Hey, Jenny.
Hey Rita.
Hey, I said tonight, but it's actually noon in California. So it's tonight somewhere where someone's watching. Um, so we talk a lot about different cases that interest us. And there was a case that came by that not interested, but I didn't. I was I was interested in how things worked out, but I really didn't want to discuss it because the subject is very heavy. And I mean, all of them are, but right now, especially um, talking about what we're about to talk about, which is suicide. And before I talk about these two different cases that parallel each other and why I'm bringing it to the channel, I do want to I do want to mention if I want to mention the suicide hotline. And if people didn't know, instead of dialing a number, you dial 988. That is used to be the national hotline was a number. And now we have, instead of 911 for an emergency, there's 988 for suicide um, connections. And it is from the federal government. It's connected that if you dial it, it will take you to your local, um, uh, different local entities that are going to help somebody in need. And so I want to say that, and I want to say it throughout because I'm going to try not to be too emotional through these stories. But if you're somebody who is listening or watching and you feel that no one's here, no one's listening to you, or no one understands, and that you would be better off not here on this earth with us, I would just highly recommend that you contact someone. And the 988 hotline may be helpful if there's not someone local to you, or there's someone that you just around you that you can't talk with. So I will say that we'll put it in the link just as a reminder. But suicide is an incredibly sensitive subject. It's horrific, and it's hard, especially when we're talking about young people. And it's going to be a bit of a downer. There is conversation, and the reason I'm bringing it to the channel is because there are two young people who committed suicide, and there were each person had someone who was what we maybe would call assisting them, or encouraging them, or making sure that they had completed the process. And that's the criminal element with both the young people who, what I would call, assisted them, or push them to it, or whatever way we want um, to capture what they did, because it's still, and Jenny and I will talk about that, is that sometimes we just can't understand what is going on, or why someone feels the need to help in something as critical as suicide. But it's complicated, and it's this conversation is judgment free for every side. But I just want to bring it not only to honor the people who we've lost and their families, but also just to delve into where we cross and where that line is, and how we cross it. Where most times people, if someone called you and said, "I'm really struggling and I don't see a way out," what would your natural response be? And I would guess, and Jenny, you can back me up, if someone called you, you may not say, "Let me help you
Yeah, I
end
would
your life."
not know.
Yeah. So that's that weird thing of, so when you see, like I said, saw the first case and I went, wow, that's amazing, and watched through the case and how it turned out. And I thought, boy, it's just all around. But 2 weeks ago, a second case came up, and with parallel young people deciding they're going to end their lives. And then in the end, they both had somebody that would help them, and both those people have gone through the criminal justice system. So
I
go ahead.
oh sorry. I also want to just say I don't know what the number is, but there are text numbers now
Yep.
if somebody is more comfortable texting as opposed to talking to somebody on the phone.
And thank you for saying that, Jenny, because the 988, you can chat, you can text, you can call.
Okay.
And when you call, when you put it through, you can choose. So, but thank you for that. There's, of course, in Google, I looked at, because I was looking for the National Suicide Hotline number that you used to see, and then I found the 988 info. Always, I just want to say that's, those organizations are there for all of us in need for all different reasons. It may not just be for suicide, but it's for mental health issues. Someone feels they're in danger. I mean, there's a lot to it, and Google was a great reference, and then the website for it as well. So I'm going to talk about two young people who are no longer with us. One is Conrad Roy, and the other is Jchandra Brown. Now, Conrad is one. His suicide made national attention when we started hearing that a friend of his who was texting him, he said, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it." And she started to, and I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to get into my truck and get the exhaust set up so I'm breathing in the carbon monoxide. And and she they found a whole list of texts for a very long amount of time of her encouraging him to do it. And at first it looked like, well, just do it, just do it, just do it. And I'm not going to read out all of the texts, but the gist of it is she was just actively just telling him to say, you said you were going to do it, just do it now, just do it now. The key thing, and so what started the process of criminal charges for manslaughter for her, for kind of assisting or pushing him to it, was there was a moment towards the end where he was getting sick and he got out of the truck and she encouraged him to go back in. And that was kind of that line of where it went from, you said you were going to do it, you want to do it, don't chicken out, you do it, just do it, stop talking about it, just do it, to when he stopped doing it and got out of the car, she encouraged him to get back in. And a little bit after that, he passed away.
Wow.
Sorry?
That's really disturbing.
Yeah. So that was that case. I didn't, because it was shocking. The fact that he was 17, sorry, he was 18, and the young girl, she was labeled as his girlfriend at the time. She was 17. So an 18-year-old says that's it. And what's wild is a couple years prior, he'd been talking about suicide. Now, this young man had issues and issues with self-harm, had been into working with a therapist, had been put on antidepressants. So it wasn't as if this moment in time that all of a sudden he was just, walking this earth and then she was pushing him and forcing him, to end his life. And what you find out is a couple of years prior, she was encouraging him to take care of himself, take his medication, get therapy. And so that's kind of the thing that is in the back of my mind as I read these stories is there is a starting point for the young person who has passed, because the young person has said and has tried to, whether it's taking an overdose of medication, self-harm, has now had a history of a few years of someone saying, I don't want to be on this earth anymore.
I hate to say it like this, but it sounds to me like he didn't really get better, and like she was, I hate to say it this way, but like she was tired of dealing with it. It was kind of like you're gonna do it or you're not. Like, just do it, get it over with, because I'm tired of living like this. Like, that sounds bad, but to me, it seems like that's almost what it happened. She was just sick of dealing with his depression and mental illness.
Possible, right? So, and that puts somebody in a tough position. So you
Yeah,
care about someone, you're a partner with someone, even at the ages of 17 and 18, boyfriend and girlfriend, is that what position are you in to go, listen, I can't deal with this anymore? Because now,
yeah,
right? So I become the bad guy for going, this is too much of a roller coaster because mental illness is real.
yeah,
Depression, clinical depression is real. And it's a lot to take.
yeah.
And so then you've got two people who are young, who, how do you navigate? It's hard as an adult to navigate somebody who's got mental health issues. It's
It is.
hard
Yeah,
to, right? It's hard to navigate. And then you can look at it as somebody older and go, geez, what you write out on text. And it's there. We'll never know because she's not going to talk to us and she's not going to say anything.
mhm,
She decided instead of a jury trial to do a bench trial because those texts are very damning,
yeah,
and the judge mentions that whole thing about when he decided to get out of the car, because to me logically the second he stepped out of the car he was going, this is getting too close, because he was getting sick.
yeah.
And
That's
then that's a pretty vulnerable place to be, and for her to say get back in, and even the judge mentioned that when he was sentencing her. Now
yeah.
she was convicted of manslaughter and she got 15 months, and she spent like 11 and a half months. So she's already out of
Mhm.
prison. And of course, her life is forever changed.
As it,
And yeah, and so it's that wild thing of, I guess what's wild to me is that stories of suicide are horrific. It's just, it's rare you hear that somebody helped or
yeah.
kind of pushed them to
I
it,
wouldn't even
right?
call this helping. I would call this like encourage, like not even giving someone hope, like not trying to give somebody hope.
Right. And then so right, so there's the wild part is there's, it's not just what she was texting, it was what she was texting other people. And the culpability is it took a long time sitting in that truck,
Hmm.
took a long time to keep breathing and keep texting. And she was texting a friend, and she even writes, oh, because the big thing is that, again, what I think that most of us would think is that the second he said he was parked somewhere and the car was running and the exhaust was going in the car, wouldn't that be a good time to call the police or
Yeah.
911
Yes.
or his parents?
Where are you?
And then the second hour, the fourth hour, the sixth hour. So that trying to understand. And then yeah, she started, um they write, because of the documents they received, the text messages to other friends, that she decided, she got to a point where she started thinking it would be a good thing to try and help him die. And so that's the other part of it, is like it may look cruel, but then from her immature brain
Mhm.
say he's in misery. And again, I would say that would be a time to call somebody like your parents,
Yeah. Yeah.
call somebody. And we need to take the world into our own hands. But yeah, just in maybe it's happened more often and it's just not part of our universe. But I thought it was a bit of a one-off. And again, it may also have a lot to do with the fact that our whole world is online now, and in pictures, right? Or
Yeah.
they're and then and the other part is our whole world is in a cloud. So something that we texted 10 years ago, or some big long thing that it takes 2 seconds. I mean, exaggerating, but our footprint is, if we have a phone, if we text, if we talk, our footprint is everywhere. So and then our friends and friends and friends, all that whole social network, and the comments you make. But still, again, I think, what's that connection where you look at someone and say, I've decided that you want to do it, I'm going to help you do it in a
Yeah.
way, in a way that makes them. And so, again, the first thing I thought was, wow. And again, with
And no, and it could be like you said, in her 17-year-old brain, it could have been a situation where they talked and he was like, please make me go through with this. I really don't want to be here. I need you to make sure I do this. I might
right,
chicken out. It might be something like that. And so, she may have been like in her own way helping.
right,
So she thought.
right.
I was an idiot at 17. So
Well, and I think that's the thing, is that just looking back, going, if someone that you cared about, good friend, boyfriend, said, I'm going to do it, I mean, we can't go back and forth in time, but my first inclination would, I got to tell my parents, I'm scared, something bad's happening. That would be my first thing. Say my best buddy or boyfriend's like, I'm going to do it tonight, I'm going to do it at this time. Probably my first thing would be to tell my parents, is like, my friend is saying these things. And then I would imagine my parents would call their parents,
yeah,
because we're all in school together. I mean,
yeah,
it's they're still in the um, juniors and seniors in high school, so that would be my thing. But yeah, again, I thought maybe it's just a one-off, and it was just two worlds colliding. Somebody who's got mental health issues, someone who has suicide ideation, someone who has a record with therapists and the family that he's tried it before, and then that the world's colliding with someone who goes, okay,
yeah,
when it comes down to it, I'm going to see it this way, which is, I'm going to help you because that's all you've talked about and what you want to do.
yeah,
So, and then again, the lines crossed where our laws say, you know what, you can't do that. If
right.
somebody says they want to kill themselves, you can't help them.
Mhm.
So, so again, here's the second reason. It happened a little bit like that again. This time it's a 16-year-old young woman named Jchandra Brown, who by all accounts, um, lovely, lovely young woman. Everybody loved her. Her family did make a move to another state. She did say, even though she liked her new friends and everything, she was struggling with acclimating to living in a new place. Her friends said she was the funnest person in the room. She was, wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of. She and her mother were really, really close, but her mother said she was struggling with some depression. And so went to a therapist, got medication, got a diagnosis, and thought everything was fine, as fine as it could be, right? Trying to monitor it.
Yeah.
But nobody thought, they thought depression, they didn't think suicide.
Right.
So uh, what happens is she does commit suicide. And the unique thing was, she goes missing, and then she's found in the woods, deep, deep, deep in the woods, and she hung herself. Um, and she had a phone, and while the police were there, they find her, and a young man comes out of the blue, because they were really in the middle of nowhere. But a young man comes out of the blue and says, yeah, he knew her, and then gave some information that was odd, which is, yeah, I knew she was going to do it, and um, that I knew she was going to do it, and I was going to support her in that. And then they go, okay, let me take your name and number in case we have any questions, because it looked definitely like a suicide, which it was.
Yeah.
Well, they find that she has her phone on her. She did leave a note saying, I really, really wanted to die, something to that effect. And But when her phone's, there's no power on it. When they power it up, they see the video of a 10-minute video where somebody had filmed the entire suicide. So, right? And so they start now, the news starts to come in to the small town, and then people start talking. And then this kid who happened to come back to this place, he was talking to his friends saying he helped her because she wanted help and she wanted to make sure that it happened 100%.
Right.
And so she wanted someone there to make sure that it happened. And he said, okay. But then he was kind of bragging to his friends to say, I helped her. And it's almost like getting away with murder. Well, of course, one of his friends, when it all went down, would go to the police and say, you might want to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he got brought in, and for the charges were like involuntary. Let me just tell you the charges because it's different than the first girl, but it's. I'm sorry. There's okay. I want to say because he ended up when the charges came out, he just pled guilty. He didn't go to trial. He pled guilty, and he okay. You've got to get through a lot of yes, and then I'm sorry. At first he said he was not guilty. Then he pled guilty to child abuse homicide. So that was interesting. So child abuse homicide. And so
is he older then?
18 to her 16.
Yeah.
So that's just the unique thing is standing there and not doing anything instead of using the phone to call, right? Or to just, I don't know, stop her in some way. Yeah. So he's in jail now. He's got 5 years to life in prison for watching and videotaping. But the big thing is, so two cases within, I don't know, a couple of years apart, two cases that come up into the sphere, whether it's on a podcast or on a national show. The thing is, and what was interesting on the one show I watched is they did interview a psychiatrist who said that the tricky part is both of these young people were leaning in the direction of suicide. So it's not, it's that's the part that's really hard to understand. He said, without those two people, the other two, in terms of encouraging them to go through with it or ensuring that they go through with it, they would, that their charges wouldn't exist. And my part of it is the horror of mental illness, and especially depression, clinical depression, that just wreaks havoc in someone's mind that life isn't worth living, and that's the only choice they have. And then the other part is, as a society, as your girlfriend, as your best friend, how do we draw the line with what is help? Because if both people think they're helping, right?
It's a really hard question because I can see both sides. Like, yes, legally it's very clear, but morally, is it, I don't want this person to suffer anymore,
right?
So I'm going to help them because that's the only way that either of us see that this problem is relieved. Or is it that you don't care? I mean, I think that, there's definitely something to be said for, I don't think that if you're someone's friend, like you, how do I even say this? I feel like you would either deeply care for this person or really not care for them at all, like to a level of almost hatred, to help them.
it's, I guess, yeah, it's that whole thing of saying, yeah, I just can't do that. How can I help you? You know, if someone, right? Is that so the young person that says, I'm just going to wake up and decide that I'm going to help him do it because if that's really what he wants, it's hard for me not to say there's a lot of immaturity with that because sometimes when you're young, you don't realize when over is over, right?
Right.
Because you
And
may
like
not have experienced that, right?
yeah, and you have such a short amount of time that you've been here that you don't understand that it feels like your world is ending right now, but in 5 years, you're going to be on top of the world. And then you may be back in that place of being down a few years later, or maybe you're not, but you haven't lived through those like really high highs and really low lows that everybody goes through. That's a cycle. You just happen to be starting your adult life on a really bad low and don't understand that that's a small part of your life.
Well, right, and that I will say because our brains are complicated, and that's why I talked about the suicide hotline. Is that it affects everyone, you know, differently, and so, but yes, we you, because just I mean just thinking without well, just thinking about being a teenager, everything revolves around you because it's just it's part of your brain growing up. So if you get the wiring or the biochemical balance of depression at, you know, that it's another obstacle to work through. I guess my, yeah, where I come from is that um that when I read the statistic that the leading cause of death ages 10 to 34 is either accident, homicide, or suicide. And
Yeah,
suicide's a very large percentage of that. So that's a lot of young people, and
it is.
that's the other part, that a lot of young people who feel at that age, and it's real to them, and it's real
Yeah.
that that's it. Whether it's environmental, whether it's the way they're wired. I'm not a therapist, but a therapist or a scientist or anything except life, knowing people who either had mental health issues and self-medicated
Mhm.
with alcohol or drugs, or family members who were schizophrenic in a violent way, who had to maintain in this world on lots of medication. The the fact that so many young people are choosing just a really dark path because they're in a dark place is that
Yeah.
all I cannot get in your head, and the, you know, just to say it gets better, you can't know that, but I will, and I'm sure Jenny will agree, is that whoever's hearing this, whoever would need to hear it, yeah, you being here matters in the big picture, and your life, whatever is happening where you can't see a way out, um, can't promise tomorrow, but there are people that can talk with you, then can help you get through minute after minute as you get just through one day, whether it's medication, therapy, just some contact outside the world that you're in to help,
There's
because
so many options to help.
there's options, and may not understand being in that moment, but know that you, we collectively as a society know that you are worth so much more here, and getting through especially the younger years, um, it's a challenge not having depression or clinical depression, and it's so just don't be ashamed of it. uh, no judgment definitely here, and don't be afraid to say I have no one to go to. Call that number, talk to somebody, because I think the resounding, once you get whatever support you need, at the end of it, we want you here and not so desperate to say that is your only choice, because um, it's true. It's better that you're here.
Things
And
can get better.
Yes. And it's not just about who you would hurt, who you would leave. You here on earth are meant to be here, and it's who you will become. And yeah, and again, I can't promise anything other than don't be ashamed of it, and don't. And that's the other thing too, Jenny. Like we've talked about, um, just being part of worlds, families, friends who struggle with different things. And one big part of it is the shame, whether it's a disability, whether somebody has on a low spectrum of autism, they're all, whether it's addiction, all these different things that they can't, just say, uh, you know what, I can't drink that, or I can have fun in a group, but because I know that I potentially um, will not be able to stop. And before, people couldn't say that, right? And there's still
Yeah.
people who just go, oh, come on, you can have one. Is that to be able to have the strength to say, I'm somebody who has this problem, or I'm somebody who gets triggered by this. So that's something, and we're not built like that. We just want to, our society kind of looks at us differently by saying, I can't do what most other people do because I have this quirk, I have this thing, I have this experience. And sometimes it's rooted in shame, and shame to tell somebody else, to show any kind of their so-called weakness. But what I say is, share with someone, even if it's a stranger on a phone call, if it means, and then get used to it and shout it out to the rooftops, because definitely those little things that we hold on to and we think people won't understand, you would be very surprised at how many of us understand, whether it's the darkness, whether it's the empathy, and then there are millions of times in my life I could say, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be this person. I want to be somebody different. And I want to be clear, it wasn't any suicidal ideation. It was, I just couldn't see a way out of where I was. And it just seemed easier to be on an island by myself somewhere, because there are challenges in life. And I had places to go, and I had shame, but then I got over it because
Yeah.
I had to build my own community of people that didn't judge me for saying there's something I struggle with, and by being able to talk about it and to shout it out, or just go, yeah, if it's weird to you, it's weird. I just can't do certain things, or that bothers me. Like we talk about, to go, it bothers me when we talk about children struggling. It bothers me to talk about cases that I won't bring, because it's just, we talk about, especially when it's family driven or children being hurt. It was tough when I saw and read about the first case of what I'm talking about today. I thought, these are kids. And then I saw the second one, again, kids. I'm in my 50s. These are 16, 17, 18-year olds. These are children still in this world, still trying to form. And to be in a place where there's no way out, that is, I think it's really a discussion I wanted to have, and to say, I don't know where you're at in your head. I don't know the way out, but that there are people who are on the other end of that line, that chat, that text, with checking out or checking into 988, because again, in the end, we want you here. So I know it's a very somber and quiet way, but I'm very passionate about not only honoring the lives that we've lost. There are two young people who made decisions that they'll have for the rest of their lives, and they're going to walk in a world of having this associated with them. So they're going to have to overcome that as well, right? To be able to own it, because they did it. And then, but the bigger issue is, there are people of all ages struggling with all different types of mental health And depression seems to be the uh, the big component in suicide.
Yeah.
And so that also seems to be, when we put it under the mental health umbrella, when we or the word depression, it does come with some sort of label. And all I'm saying is, who cares about labels when we're talking about someone's life? And if your parents don't understand, if your school doesn't understand, if your friends don't understand, um, that isolation that you feel, there are people that understand, and it may be just outside your circle, and you may have to go further outside. And so I just want to say that, and I keep saying it over and over, but honoring the lives, and then honoring the lives of the young people who've got to move on with their lives, because it's a big uh, it's a big choice to make, to end your life. It's another big choice to help someone with that. And thank you for allowing me to kind of talk in a stream of consciousness out loud, because it's hard to understand um, where everybody's coming from. But in at the end of the day, just want to really support and encourage people who are hurting and who can't see a way out to get in touch with someone. So, Jenny, thank you, and
Rita.
always for listening. And we will see you on our next episode. I Don't Like Murder. Looking forward to it. Bye, everybody.
Bye.